Dear Congress, our names are Shelley Ortiz,
Hannah Hood, and Nina Nandine, and we attend an art school in Phoenix, Arizona.
Throughout the years, we have encountered a handful of friends that struggle with mental illnesses. And throughout those years, we have seen how a lack of support for treatment can result in devastating events, as well as emotional distress for those individuals and their families.
My name is Felix Schmidt, and I was diagnosed with schizoaffective bipolar disorder. I ended up in the hospital after an episode, like an attack, sent me there. I went straight to being an inpatient. They diagnosed me there after 5 minutes or so of talking to me as bipolar and treated me for 2 weeks. I got out of the hospital and went from doctor to doctor looking for someone who would actually listen. It took me over a year to find a doctor who actually did listen.
Looking deeper into the topic of mental illness, we've discovered shocking statistics.
22 veterans commit suicide every single day as a result of some of these emotional problems.
Unfortunate events.
When I look back on the incident that took place in Tucson, the tragedy where I was shot, Congresswoman Giffords was shot, and 17 other people were wounded and 6 people died. The young man who did those shootings, who shot us, had been displaying symptoms of mental illness for at least 2 years before that time.
And the stigmas that they create for our society.
A lot of the mentally ill, both in my family and otherwise, feel like people just don't pay any attention to them and try to pretend like they don't really exist, and that kind of isolation really can make a problem worse, in addition to just being totally dehumanizing.
In our research, not only did we stumble upon the lack of help towards adults and youth who struggle with mental illness, but also a substantial absence of help for veterans who struggle with mental illness.
If we look back on what happened after the Vietnam War, the veterans who came back to a country very divided over the war, and they were reviled and called baby killers. But what's even worse, they weren't given the mental health services and treatment that they needed. They ended up in the homeless population.
If they're on their own, which is usually the case, it's hard to get that help that you need to start working towards getting yourself out of the rut that it creates.
With things like PTSD, the longer it goes, and schizophrenia, bipolar, the longer you let it go without any treatment, and sort of the more trouble that the person gets in, the more isolation that they end up with in terms of being ostracized from society and alienated from friends, the harder it is to treat.
However, throughout this process, we were able to find facilities that help veterans through the struggles from coming back from war.
My name is Cody Nichols. I'm a 9.5-year Army Reserve veteran. Currently, I'm an Assistant Dean of Students for Veterans Education and Transition Services here at the University of Arizona. So here at the University of Arizona, we have a vet center that's approximately 3,800 square feet. It's entirely staffed by student veterans who have transitioned into the University of Arizona and more familiar with the University of Arizona. They're all using VA educational benefits. And it's a place for veterans to come and be around other veterans, be around other folks who have walked in the same boots that they've walked in the past. It's a place to get away from things, and it's a hub of information for our student veterans to come to find resources they may need during their college career here at the University of Arizona.
Down there can be kind of a nightmare at lunchtime, so it's like, let me get out of the sea of people that I don't really identify with and come and find people that are closer to my background, I guess.
And my name is Jeremy Thompson. I was in the U.S. Army. I did 2 deployments to Iraq, one in '05 and again in '08. No, '09. So to have space like this for us is pretty key, because a lot of us do come home with issues, be them physical or mental, and having an area like this where we can get together with people that understand our experiences can really help people out.
It is also clear that this issue is an important one to our country. On December 10, 2013, $100 million was advocated in funding for mental health services and facilities. The money went to help community health centers expand services for those living with mental illness and addiction. And for this, we commend the government for its attention to the issue. By talking to Congressman Ron Barber, we saw a possible solution to educate and help those struggling with the introduction of the Mental Health First Aid Act.
So the Mental Health First Aid Act tries to get at that issue of public awareness and understanding of mental illness, of reducing the stigma of mental illness, so that when people, parents, teachers, fellow students, friends, see symptoms of mental illness in someone, if they've gone through this class, this Mental Health First Aid program, they will begin to understand through that training what they're seeing when they're seeing it, what the symptoms might mean in terms of mental health issues, and where they can get treatment and help for that person.
If these were things that we were screening for, if childhood trauma was the thing that you looked for in schools and treated, yeah, you could save a lot of substance abuse, a lot of later violence, a lot of later social problems.
It's vital that we reduce the stigma attached to mental illness and open doors for those who need help. On the day we finished our film, we learned that President Barack Obama signed the omnibus spending bill that includes Ron Barber's Mental Health First Aid program. But we have a long way to go. We strongly encourage Congress to continue to provide funding for those who struggle with mental illness, and continue to allocate resources and develop new programs for those who are in need.
I don't want to be treated differently for it because I'm just kind of used to it.